Today we're going to be taking a look at Denji, essentially the main character and the sole focus of Chainsaw Man. But what's more important here is Denji's origin and how he gets a start as a demon hunter. Now, Denji does in fact have a tragic background, and this comes from not having a father or mother. We find out later what actually occurs to his father, but we're going to save that because it's not anime only right now. But the main thing to gain here is that he is now a demon hunter because of his friend and fellow demon, Pochita. So, Pochita is actually the first friend he makes after the passing of his parents, and Denji's able to pay off the debts that his father has accrued over the years. Now, unfortunately, this is to the Yakuza or mob, so he has to do this with quite a bit of interest. Now, as we know, this doesn't actually end up working out for Denji, and he ends up having to essentially be saved by Pochita and again saved by Makima. So, as we start to look and dive into his story, Denji is actually just forced from one tragic situation to another where he's in the care of another person who simply seeks to control him. And in the case, it was the mobsters who were using him purely for money and financial motive, into Makima, who, as we find out later, is not as straightforward as she claims, and is very much a controlling figure that wants to take Denji for the special abilities that we start to see later in the series. But that's neither here nor there for anime viewers, and that'll come much further into the series. So, as we start to look and examine Denji as a character, it seems like he's a boy who hasn't really had much, even so much as a schooling, as again we start to see later. So, it's something that is again tragic for Denji, and we have to get used to essentially throughout because Denji isn't someone who gets to keep the good things, if at all, for very long. So we can later look at some of the friends that he starts to gain in his public safety work. And the most important and first of these is Denji, Aki, and Power as a trio that essentially survive and go on to fight and become pretty much their only friends left in the world. As we see in the anime that Aki has lost his entire family, specifically to the Gun Devil. Power is someone that has never really had anyone besides her cat, and Denji, of course, is in a very similar scenario. Denji's just the guy who doesn't really have much, saddled along with two and a few others that, again, really don't have much. And so Chainsaw Man seems to be a story about the loss and enjoying the little things that one gains in life. Denji's just happy to have 3 square meals a day, as well as his friends who are happy to be well fed and just to be alive at this point. It seems like there's a lot of heart tugging with this group and cast essentially because there isn't much else for them, right? Their initial goals seem to be to gain revenge or just a few meals a day. And so it does seem like these guys are on their last strings, which we come to find out they are. And so when this occurs, we start to lose characters and understand that, this really is a sad and lonely tale, specifically for Denji, right? And so as things move along, there is a few others that start to lose and become, siphoned off and shaved off from the main cast. One of the first major characters in this way is Himeno, and she's a character that is obviously very important to Denji as her character arc is essentially built on right before she gets killed. And so as she's killed by both Katana Man and his friend, it looks like Himeno's going to be a main part of this cast and story to stay. But as we're set up to be built with her, it essentially just falls down the next couple episodes. And so that is, again, just a part of the Chainsaw Man story. So Denji does lose more friends and characters as he continues his path with public safety. And so this thing becomes a bit more tragic time after time. And it is unfortunate that things are done in this way, but it is a part of what makes Denji's tale so amazing and triumphant, that he's able to overcome all these hardships and still find a way to enjoy life and win. So as we continue, we're going to try to find the good things about Chainsaw Man and what Denji has left, even though he's lost so much. But the main proponent of these is Makima. She's the one that's setting all these tragic scenarios up with very little safety for anyone besides herself and a few others that can help benefit her. And so as we start to see, Makima isn't as clear-cut and good as she came out to be. She's not really there to help Denji, but is actually there to use him, right, for her own advantage. And we get a very specific reason as to why she does this for the most part. And so, if you guys haven't caught on, Makima's not as pure and straightforward as she led herself on to be. So, just keep an eye out for her because we start to see some nefariousness fairly early on with Katana Man and what she does to the prisoners that she takes on the Kyoto Mountain. And she uses them for her own ends very quickly. Even though the rest of her squad is completely wiped out, she seems to be okay, and we start to get a glimpse as to why that is. And so, as not to spoil too much for anime only viewers, what we're looking into is both Chainsaw Man and Denji. Denji, the tragic and lonely child, who hasn't, again, had much in his life, and Chainsaw Man, the absolute monstrosity that can take on, very powerful demons, and as we find out later, has a very specific use that can change the course of how demons operate and how things in the hierarchy of demons go. So what we're looking at and what we're finding here is Chainsaw Man is very different from Denji, even though Denji takes on this lonely identity. And so here, I don't want to, again, spoil too much. We find a duality between these two and how Denji is essentially forced to become someone who's eternally tormented, but still finds good in, a few ways and in the very simple things in life, even though, again, he's left with almost nothing at the end. So, if you haven't tried Chainsaw Man, it's very good, very worth the watch. The manga was great, the anime is even better. So again, I'd check it out. Just give it a few episodes to kind of heat up, and it's pretty much fast-paced and breakneck speed from there. So again, just one more chance to try Chainsaw Man. The season's about to come to an end fairly soon, so now's a good time to catch up if you haven't already.